Hi you guys! It is the time of the year where we talk about favorites. I am so chatty and I have so many things to say to you today that I've decided to make this video in two parts. One is going to be about my favorite genres, science fiction, fantasy, and mystery. So it is this video. And in the other video, I'm going to talk about my favorites in other genres, non-fiction, contemporary, classics, all that. And I am not able to rank anything with my favorites or any things that I read because I think it is so different. It's impossible to rank in order. So I just decided to talk to you about one book or one series in each category, in each genre. So let's start right away with YA and YA fantasy, and it's the Remnant Chronicle by Mary Pearson. This is the first book, The Kiss of Deception. I am usually not a big fan of YA fantasy, not because I look down on YA, because I love YA contemporary, but I'm just not into YA fantasy a lot. And this one really gripped me and I really enjoyed it. So I want to talk to you about it. The Kiss of Deception, we follow Leah, the main character. She is the heiress, the princess of a kingdom, and her father forced her into marriage with another prince from another province, and she decides to run away on her wedding date. Kind of a stupid decision, kind of not the smart thing to do, but you know, it's the whole thing where she's trying to get rid of tradition and all that, and she goes to a coast town and start living there until her past catch up to her. There is one assassin and the prince who was supposed to marry her that goes after her, and during the first half of the book you don't know who is who. It is different point of view, so you have the point of view of the two guys and the girl, and of course they both fall in love with her, and so it's a whole love triangle, but you don't know who is who the first half. That I quite enjoyed that, and the first book was good, but the whole series was very, very good. What I really love about that series is the character work. It really builds up all the character mature and the relationship between them as well, and it all looks pretty realistic, and that I really enjoy compared to sometimes other YA fantasy. What I enjoyed as well in that book is the world building. In the first book you mostly see one area, but then as the series goes on you explore different area, different cultures, and how they all intertwine. There is also tradition and backstory of all of this world, and I really enjoy that when we go pretty deep into the world and the culture, and also spiritually the different religion in that area and how they work. There is some magic. It is not explored at all, I think, in the first book, but then it builds up, and it becomes an important part of the whole resolution of the series. And I'm just gonna add that the main character, Leah, she's one of the best written female main character in YA, in my opinion. She starts pretty much like all other YA girl, very sassy, kind of strong, but then she develops a resourcefulness, she matures, she's self-sacrificed, and it's all very enjoyable to see her grow up. Okay, you know it's coming, so here it is. In adult fantasy, my favorite is the Stormlight archive books. Are they all here? Yes, they're all here. This is what I've read this year in the Stormlight archive, and I've read it twice. All of those I've read twice because I loved it so much. And now it's a mess. My favorite though is Words of Radiance. So it is the second installment in the Stormlight archive series, where it's gonna be a 10 books series. Each book is pretty much 1,000 to 100 pages. We are on a planet that is so different than ours, where it's ruled by high storms that just come and they are not predicted, and they just wreck the whole world, and every single animal and plant on that land are adapted to that. So it's really interesting to see. But this is just the world building. There's magic system upon magic system in there that are so deep that you only brush in the first book, you only brush the surface of the magic systems, and then they're more explored in this. Also, they are spread little living things that come whenever rushes of emotion comes to you, or whenever the scene or the weather, pattern change. There are plenty of reasons those little thingy come and sprung next to you, and as the story goes on, you understand that they are actually very important to that land. And I haven't talked about the characters yet, and the character work is amazing. We follow mainly in the first book 3 main characters. Kaladin, who grew up as training surgeon, then got into the army, and now he is a slave and trying to escape and going through depression. You have Shalon, who is trying to be the ward to the princess of that land, and she's very witted and very curious person. And you have Dalinar, who is the brother to the king, who was assassinated 6 years ago, and he's trying to live up to the legacy of his brother and trying to unite his whole country. So that's the speech. Why do I love it? It is so well written. You will never be bored reading those books. It is a big cast of character. It is a big world building into those books, but it is done in a very nice way where you are able to follow everything. And if you don't get stuff in the first read, you can always reread it. And that is the point of this. You have so much foreshadowing that once you've learn a new element of the story or the backstory, you want to go through every single book again to see and try to pinpoint, like, this is what happened with those. Some I was trying to predict were elements foreshadowing other stuff. Some are foreshadowing that I've already known. Some of those are like my favorite moments because those characters you get attached to so much. They feel so real to me now. I know it's stupid to say, but yeah, that it is the truth. So if you haven't read the Stormlight archive yet, I really recommend it to you. If this whole thing sounds really daunting to you, I recommend you start with Warbreaker by Sanderson. I've reread it this year and it's still one of my favorite, and I love it. And I want to reread it right now for the second time in the same year. Next genre, science fiction, and my favorite is Isaac Asimov robot series. I think it's a great introduction to science fiction. I haven't read a lot of science fiction in my life, but I'm loving discovering that genre through Isaac Asimov. The robot series is kind of a mystery science fiction robot solving murder thing, and it introduced you to a lot of concepts like the 3 laws of robotic and outer world and things like that. Asimov, if you don't know, he is a classic. Those books were written between the 50s and the 70s, I would say. My favorite right now of this whole collection is The Naked Sun. So the whole series starts with the Caves of Steel, where we follow on Earth Elijah Bailey, who is a detective in the police, and a robot who is Ardenil Olivar. On Earth, humans and robots do not get along at all, and on this version of Earth, robots are really mistrusted by humans, and they are very trusted by humans that live outside of the planet Earth. And this book's introduced the detective and the robot working together. And on that one, the second one, they go out of the planet Earth into, Solaria. And on Solaria, there is a limited amount of humans living on there, and they all live in different mansions and very far from each other, and they pretty much never meet like each other. They never spend time together. They have kind of a FaceTime thing. That's the only way they socialize. Otherwise, they are very isolated, and they love it that way. And I think it was very interesting to read it right now. I could see so much parallel between self-isolation and the pandemic and everything that's going on in the world and this book, and I think that's why it is my favorite right now. I think Asimov is great at forecasting where the world will go with new technology and how human would adapt. I've seen it in all of his books so far, but very much in that one this year. And last genre is mystery, of course. I have loved mystery this year. For some reason, they just like the heartwarming, cozy thing that I tend to read whenever I'm in it of it. A strong contender for favorite, but not the favorite, is Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie, but the actual favorite is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. I've read this when I was in high school, and the stories stick with me for so long, and I absolutely wanted to reread it this year, and oh my gosh, it's still as good as it was 10 years ago. It is a whodunit story where 10 people are sent into an island. All of them have been called on the island for very different reasons. And you think 10 might be a very big cast to follow, but they're actually very different, and so it's very easy to follow them. Even though I've read this before and it stuck with me so much that I could still remember the end of the plot, I was scratching my head like, oh no, you must remember wrong, or like, ooh, this would make a very strong contender. And I love that story, and the writing is beautiful. And if you've never read any Agatha Christie, I think the best way to experience this is to start reading other Agatha Christie book and then read that, and you would see how it is her best work. Okay, I've made a big mess down here, but those are my favorite this year. Let me know what are your favorite. Do we have any of the same? And if you have any thought on those, I will be more than happy to keep talking about them. I'll see you in another video soon. Bye!